We're now going to look at numbers 3 and 4 on the 5.1 to 5.3 quiz review. We are solving rational functions here. They are fractions with variables in the denominator. So here we go. We see the steps here again in the middle. First, we want to factor the denominators. Then we're going to multiply each side by the least common multiple of the denominator, which really we could say that's the common denominator. And we'll distribute and simplify each term. And then we're going to solve whatever we have left after that. So first thing we do is we factor the denominators. So on this first one, we can factor the first denominator. There's a b in common. So we factor out a b, and we're left with b minus 3. Second one, that can't be factored at all. It's just a b, so we leave it as b equals. This one is actually the same as the first fraction, so we can factor out a b. We're left with b minus 3. So we factor the denominator. Now what we do is we multiply both sides by the least common denominator. And so as we look at this, this has a b and a b minus 3. This has a b, which we already had a b, and then another b times b minus 3. So the least common denominator is b times b minus 3. So we multiply both sides by b times b minus 3. So here on the left side, there's two terms. So this gets multiplied to both of them. And we do that individually. So if we multiply it times the first term here, that b times b minus 3 is going to cancel. So this will cancel with this. Now I'm not crossing it out because we still will have to multiply this by the second term. So that's why I'm not crossing out. But that will cancel the highlighted parts there. So when you multiply the first part, you just end up with 1, because when you cancel, you're still left with the numerator. Then we multiply it by the second term, and when you multiply it by the second term, the b will cancel with the b, and so we are left with plus, because of this plus sign. The b cancels, and so we're left with 1 times b minus 3. 1 being this number right here. So this was a 1 here. It could be a 2, or a 5 or a 7, but in this case it's a 1, but you multiply it times that b minus 3. On the right side, there's just this one term, so when you multiply by b times b minus 3, they do cancel. We can cross it out here because it's just one term. So this equals 6. And now we're left with a pretty simple equation to solve. So this is 1 times b minus 3 is equal to 6. Add like terms over here. We have b minus 2 equals 6. Add 2 to both sides, and we get b is equal to 8. All right, coming over this next one, we're going to factor the denominators again. So we just have a 1 over here. That doesn't factor at all. We have 8. Well, looking at this one, a 3 factors out of that. So factor out a 3, we're left with 2n minus 3. And then this one, this is a trinomial. However, before we kind of work with the trinomial part, we actually see that a 3 factors out of here. So factor a 3 out, we have 2n squared minus 3n plus 1. This can factor even further, so we're still in step 1 here, factoring. So we got 8, 3 times 2n minus 3, plus 1 over 3, and then we have to factor this trinomial. In order to get a 2n squared, we need a 2n and an n. In order to get a 1, we need a 1 and a 1, and in fact it will be a negative 1 and a negative 1. So we finished that first step of factoring the denominators. Now we're going to multiply both sides by the least common denominator, which we have a 3, a 2n minus 3. This has a 3, sorry, 2n minus 1. I apologize. Another 2n minus 1 and n minus 1. So this part I'm circling here is actually the least common denominator in this case. So we will multiply both sides by 3 times 2n minus 1 times n minus 1. All right, so over here on the left, we're all just multiplying by 1, so we have 3 times 2n minus 1 times n minus 1. On the right, this gets distributed to both. When we multiply here, the 3 times 2n minus 1 will cancel with 3 times 2n minus 1. And so we end up with the 8 times n minus 1. And then we have our plus sign here, so plus. And when we distribute here, this thing cancels completely, so we just have a plus 1. And now we want to solve this. Now this right here, we could multiply it back out, but we could realize it's actually just this. So either way, we will get the fact that this is 6n squared minus 9n plus 3 is equal to, this distributes 8n minus 8 plus 1. Well, this is negative 7. So instead of writing a whole nother line, I'm just going to put negative 7 there. Well, we have a quadratic equation because we have a squared. And so when we have a quadratic, we want to get everything to one side. So we will subtract 8n and add 7. Subtract 8n and add 7. And we get 6n squared minus 17n plus 10 equals 0. And from here we have a quadratic equation, so we can try factoring. If factoring doesn't work, we can try the quadratic formula. So the factoring might take a little guess and check. Let's see what we can do here. To get a 6n squared, that actually could be 6n and 1n, or 3n and 2n, so we might have to do a lot of guessing and checking. I'm going to let's try 3n and 2n. We have a positive 10, which is 1 and 10, or 2 and 5 gets us that. So we need two negatives. So if we put a 5 here and a 2 here, that would be a negative 4n minus 15n, which is negative 19n, which is not negative 17n. So that doesn't work. So this can take some guess and check. So let's switch the 5 and 2. So let's try a 5 here and a 2 here. Well, that's actually not going to work, but we can check it. Negative 5n, negative 10n, negative 6n is not correct, because that's not negative 17n. So we tried 5 and 2. We can try 10 and 1. And I think this is what is going to work. So we'll try 10. Maybe not. 10 and 1. That's negative 20. Minus 3, which is negative 23. That doesn't work. If we switch them, that doesn't work. So looks like 3n and 2n was not the correct choice for our first one. So let's try 6n and 1n. So 6n and 1n. Just to remind you, we could use the quadratic formula, and that might be helpful. So 6n and 1n, and let's try 5 and 2. And so this is negative 5n minus 12n does give us the negative 17n. So this is the one that we want. That is correctly factored now. And now we can solve, because we know either 6n minus 5 equals 0, or this one's a little easier, but n minus 2 equals 0. So solving the one on the left, we add 5 to both sides, and then we divide by 6. So n equals 5/6. Or, on this next one, add 2 to both sides, we get n equals 2. So our answers are n equals 5/6 or 2. And those are a couple of examples of solving rational equations. The main idea is factor the denominators, multiply both sides by the least common denominator. That will eliminate all denominators. And then the rest of this is actually more of like an Algebra 2 question where you're solving some type of equation. In this specific case for number 4, we solved a quadratic equation.